My name is Madeline, and I'm 23 years old. I live in a small town with my parents, and for as long as I can remember, I've dreamed about my wedding day. I imagined myself in a beautiful white dress, holding flowers, walking down the aisle with a radiant smile. 3 years ago, I met Gerald at a friend's birthday party. He was kind, funny, and incredibly handsome. When he said hello with that sweet smile of his, something in my heart just clicked. We started dating, and before long, he asked me to be his girlfriend. I said yes without hesitation. We spent every day together, talking about our dreams and planning our future. Then, one magical day, he asked me to marry him. I cried tears of joy and said yes. It was the happiest moment of my entire life. Finally, my wedding day arrived. My mother woke me early that morning, tears already filling her eyes as she whispered that my big day had come. My friends gathered around to help with my hair and makeup, and when I slipped into my white dress covered in tiny shining pearls, I felt like a princess. My best friend Eleanor told me I looked beautiful, and I could barely believe the woman staring back at me in the mirror. The house buzzed with excitement as relatives, friends, and neighbors filled every corner. My father stood near the door watching me, whispering that his little girl was getting married. I ran to hug him tightly and promised I would always be his little girl, even though he could barely speak through his emotions. Just before the ceremony, Gerald called me. His voice was warm and excited, and he told me he just wanted to hear me one more time before seeing me as his bride. We exchanged I love yous, and I felt my heart overflow with happiness. Walking into the hall with my father, I saw everyone stand and turn toward me. Gerald stood at the front, looking at me with such love that I thought I might cry. We exchanged rings, and for a perfect moment, everything felt complete. Then suddenly, the lights went out. The music stopped. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Gerald and I looked at each other, trying to understand what was happening. Then a loud voice shouted from outside, demanding that the wedding be stopped. Everyone turned toward the entrance, where a tall man with dark, angry eyes stood in the doorway. I didn't recognize him at all. He walked inside slowly, his voice echoing through the silent hall as he declared that this wedding couldn't happen. My mother rushed to my side, panicking. The stranger looked directly at me and asked if I remembered him. I was completely confused and told him I didn't. He laughed bitterly and said I had forgotten him, but he had never forgotten me. Gerald stood up protectively and demanded to know who this man was. The stranger smiled coldly and said he was the truth I had tried to hide. Then he pulled out a photograph from his pocket and showed it to everyone. It was me, years younger, standing beside him and smiling. My heart stopped. I genuinely didn't remember the photo or him. Gerald asked if it was true, his voice breaking. I swore I didn't know anything about it. The man accused me of lying, but I explained louder that I had been in an accident 5 years ago and lost parts of my memory. My mother confirmed it, explaining that I had spent weeks in the hospital. The stranger, whose name was Lucas, looked shocked. He said he had waited for years for me, not knowing what had happened. My mother gently told him we never knew about him because I never spoke of him after the accident. Lucas sat down heavily, his anger melting into sadness. He said his heart had been broken all these years. I apologized, tears streaming down my face, telling him I truly didn't remember it. Gerald studied the photo, then looked at me with hurt in his eyes, asking why I never told him. I begged him to believe me that I had no memory of any of it. Lucas shook his head, still convinced I was lying. After a long, painful silence, Gerald asked Lucas his name and listened as he said he had loved me. Then Gerald said something that broke through the tension. He told Lucas that I didn't remember him and that he loved me now. Lucas stood up slowly, looking defeated, and said he understood but had to try. Then he walked out of the hall, leaving devastation in his wake. That night, Gerald sat beside me and I asked him, terrified, if he still wanted to marry me. He squeezed my hand and said yes, because he loved who I am now. Even though his words comforted me, I couldn't forget the pain on Lucas's face. The next morning, a young boy appeared at my door with a small bag that Lucas had sent. Inside was a book and a letter. As I read Lucas's words, my tears fell freely. He described how we met in college, how we fell in love, how we planned a future together. Then I disappeared after my accident, and he searched everywhere for me. He had spent years waiting, unable to forget. When he learned I was getting married, he had to see for himself. Now, he understood I truly didn't remember, and even though it hurt more than anything, he didn't want to destroy my happiness. He wished me well and said goodbye forever. I opened the book and found photographs of Lucas and me together, laughing and holding hands, looking so happy. I showed everything to my parents that evening. My mother admitted sadly that I had loved Lucas deeply before the accident, but they decided not to tell me when I couldn't remember, fearing it would hurt me more. I wished they had trusted me with the truth. I spent the whole night looking at those photos, feeling torn between the love I had now and the love I had lost and couldn't even remember. The next morning, I knew what I had to do. I asked Gerald to meet me and told him I needed to see Lucas one more time to say goodbye properly. Gerald smiled sadly and said he would wait for me. I found Lucas at his small home, and he looked surprised to see me standing at his door. I told him I had read his letter and seen our photos. I apologized for leaving him and for all the pain he had endured alone. He said he was just glad I was happy now. We sat together in silence for a few moments, and then I stood to leave. We said our final goodbyes, and as I walked away, tears fell, but I also felt a sense of peace settling over my heart. 1 month later, I married Gerald. Our ceremony was simple, but filled with genuine love. As I stood beside him, I realized that sometimes life takes away our memories. But the love that once existed never truly disappears. It lives on in different forms, in the people we become, in the choices we make. I learned that true love isn't just about holding on. Sometimes, true love means having the courage to let go, to honor the past while embracing the future. Both Gerald and Lucas taught me what it means to love deeply. And though my journey was painful, it led me exactly where I was meant to be.